What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are finally starting up our turbo K24 Swap Subaru BRZ for the very first time, and we're going to try to make sure that everything's buttoned up and ready for the dyno. Let's do it. So in case you didn't see the last video on the channel, I kind of almost cut my thumb off. This happened about a week and a half ago at this point, so if you want all the gruesome details, make sure you check out that video. I'll try to leave a link somewhere up here if you guys want to check that out. Here are the explanation and basically all of the details around how this happened, but long story short, I am going to be mostly fine. I get to keep the thumb, and the damage really wasn't too bad, all things considered, but I am going to have kind of a loss of feeling in certain parts on my thumb because I did cut one of the nerves at the end of my thumb. I know, kind of gross and not really relevant, but basically what I'm going to be doing is working with a bit of a handicap because of the fact that I can only use one hand. If this was healed and it was, under normal conditions and it didn't hurt, if the bone wasn't still broken, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. However, I can't really grab with this hand very well. So, yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it. And I do kind of feel the need to clarify a little bit here. I have already started the car. I'll give you some footage in just a second, but because of when I started the car and when this happened, I haven't really had a whole lot of time to make continuity between the last couple of videos, so I apologize for that. I apologize if this is a bit confusing, but the main point is that when we did our startup prep video, everything was pretty much done. I didn't really have to do anything else after that point aside from try to start it up a good handful of times. So let me go ahead and play some of the footage that I got between my camera and my phone and all that kind of stuff. Take a look. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Almost. It wants to. But, oh.
Yeah, there is a little aroma. But could that be the old oil?
Probably. I haven't sucked up any extra coolant yet. We're not spilling anything. So it's holding an idle. I do have to kind of throttle it to keep it alive a little bit, but eventually it'll hold. That misfire check engine code is gone. Hopefully it just has worked through the bad fuel that was still in the tank. We are idling, baby. I'm kind of looking for any additional vacuum leak in here. I got my blow-off valve hooked up there, obviously, don't have it clamped, but it's on there. Looking for sources of, I still have my AN line so my catch can't open, but she runs! So yes, the car does run. I am super pumped. If this wasn't a problem, I would be basically done and already at the dyno by this point, but we work with what we got. We learned a very valuable life lesson, so we're just gonna try and keep moving forward here. So on the checklist of things to do, bleed the coolant system, because even though the car started up and was running, the K series is notoriously difficult for bleeding the system and actually being able to get all of the air out and all that kind of stuff. So we need to do that. I need to finish up my blow-off valve and wastegate vacuum references. When I did the startup, I did not have that done because of the fact that I didn't need to have that done in order for just to do the startup and get it to idle. the wastegate was not going to open because there wasn't going to be enough pressure, and the blow-off valve was not going to open because of the same reason. I wasn't going to be hitting any amount of boost and then letting off and needing to open the blow-off valve. So I haven't done that. Bleed the coolant, do my vacuum lines. I need to make my -10 AN catch can lines and mount the catch can itself. And the last thing I need to do, and I've been kicking myself that I haven't done this already, is my wastegate dump pipe. And that's kind of how this happened. Again, if you haven't seen the video, I kind of explained what I was working on, which was trying to cut tube for the wastegate dump pipe. So I have this Vibrant J pipe. It's 1 3/4 inch, which fits the outlet V-band on the wastegate. So I am gonna have to still cut this up. I am gonna have to use that bandsaw that did me dirty, but we got to get going on this thing. I mean, we're coming up very close to Cosmic Drift, which I want to be able to take the car to, and it's got to be done before then. So without further ado, let's do the catch can lines first, because I think that's really the first thing that I want to handle. So for the catch can, I have 2 -10 AN 45-degree fittings here and here on the driver's side of the engine. Now, the plan is to have it mounted, have the catch can mounted to this tab right here. I believe this was used for supporting like maybe the intake on the stock engine. Engine's been out for so long I can't hardly remember, you know, where anything went, but this has a little threaded hole right here. I don't know the exact thread, but it looks like an M8 bolt, maybe M810 or M8125, something like that. But the plan is to take the catch can, and this is really not great for me to be doing with the thumb, but is to have the catch can more or less mounted somehow to that little tab right here in the back. So I have all of that aluminum flat bar that I used to create my intercooler mounts, top and bottom. So the plan is to create sort of a mount that I can use to put this onto that little tab. What I probably should do is create the mount and get the catch can put on first. That way I can accurately determine how long the lines from these fittings need to be in order to get down to it. So I've got all of this aluminum flat bar, and I'll probably use the shortest piece that I have. So I need to just go ahead and kind of cut up some of that, see if I can't fabricate a bit of a catch can mount. All right, well, we've got it mounted. Now, I will tell you, I'm not loving the position. It does clear my IAT sensor line, so that's not a problem. However, the spot where the, the fittings need to come in is really close to my belt. Now, I don't love that idea, but that's more or less what the bracket kind of looks like, right? That is pretty much how I envisioned it being positioned, but I guess while I was just sort of holding it and trying to find a a good spot for it, I guess I never really put a whole lot of thought into where these fittings are going to be coming from and or going. Obviously, like, it's not the most secure thing in the world, and we'll see how that plays out, but for right now, I think that's going to have to work. Okay, well, I've figured out what is most likely just going to be a temporary solution. So those two little ears that I had on the bracket originally, I just kind of took them off of the longer sort of central piece, kind of finagled them around a little bit and hooked them up like this. Obviously, I'm only using one of the mounting tabs on the catch can, so I don't think this is going to be a great permanent solution, but at the very least, the fittings are now pointing, this guy right there is now pointing straight back, and it runs all the way around the back of the intake manifold and goes right in the front here. I'm about to make the back one, but originally I was going to use the 45-degree fitting here and just kind of shoot down through this gap, but once I kind of, you know, screwed it in all the way and put some weight on it, sort of emulating the weight of a hose, it was actually making contact with the top of my K-Power fuel rail, and one, I just didn't want it to be making contact here. I just didn't want that extra sort of vibration, and also I want to show off the pretty K-Power logo, you know? So we've got all of this Dash 10 hose left, so let's try to run this. Alright, so with that, we pretty much have all of our lines done. Yes, I did get my stitches pulled out of the injured thumb, so I can move it a little bit, but I still can't really grab with anything, so we'll see how much more progress I can make here on my own. But the short part of it is that the AN lines for the catch can are pretty much done now. But so these two lines come all the way down to the catch can. You can kind of see them connected right down here. If we can focus, there we go. Well, more or less. For a second it kind of focused. Now, as much as I would like to go ahead and handle my vacuum lines for the blow-off valve and the wastegate, because I think that would be relatively straightforward, I do want to go ahead and cut the pipe for the wastegate, because of the fact that if I have to end up taking those pipes to heat lightning to have them weld them because of the thumb here, I want to be able to drop those off sooner rather than later, because today is Wednesday. I want to be able to have this thing at the dyno no later than next Friday. So I kind of have a week and a half, and I need to give heat lightning time to drop the parts off, find time in their schedule to weld those pipes together. So I think we're gonna just go ahead and jump in and do the wastegate pipe. So you can see the wastegate right here, and right now it just has an open dump, so it would basically just be, you know, pouring exhaust fumes straight into my engine bay right here, which I don't want. So really all I'm going to do for now, eventually I will have it recirculated back into the turbo downpipe, but for now all I really want to do is just get it, basically have the dump back past the front subframe, so that, you know, when I'm driving, all of that exhaust, you know, dump out of the wastegate is going back behind the car and not just pouring out right here in the engine bay. I basically just cut the 90-degree off of it. Now that angle is not perfectly straight up and down, and again that has to do with just my bandsaw not cutting perfectly vertical, but I took the belt sander and really gave it the beans and made it so that the actual cut is pretty flat. I don't know if that transferred at all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that little 45 piece that I cut out of there, and I'm basically just gonna see if I can stick this straight into that V-band flange and just more or less point it straight down. And if that works, I'm pretty sure that's just how I'm gonna run it. And then once it's welded together, I will heat wrap this little piece, because that'll take like 5 minutes to do. All right, so here we are again back under the wastegate, and I'm gonna take this 90 and try to slide this up in here. There we go. So that is now, sorry, the flashlight's in the way. That 90 degree is now seated, and hopefully I can show you where it comes out at. Yeah, so right about there. That is just about perfect. So I think that's how we're gonna leave it. I'm just gonna take this little 90 degree pipe here and take the flange to heat lightning and have them welded together. I would do it, but you know, thumb, and I'm not gonna be able to really hold two pieces in place exactly how I want it and tack and do all of that stuff. So for now, we're just gonna drop it off of heat lightning, let them do it, and pick it up early next week. And with the wastegate more or less solved, obviously still needs to get welded, but with that more or less figured out, we can move on to running the vacuum lines and the pressure reference for the blow-off valve and the wastegate respectively. Now, originally what I tried to do for the blow-off valve is actually use a fitting that is on the intake manifold. So if we come in on this side of the manifold, you can see that there's a threaded hole right here. And so my assumption was that, hey, that leads through, you know, that's a through hole that goes to the inside of the intake manifold. And it's a 1/8 NPT thread. So, you know, you put a little 1/8 NPT with a barb fitting, run that to your blow-off valve, and you're good to go. Well, turns out that that threaded hole is actually not a through hole, if you will. It's threaded, but it doesn't see the pressure that the intake manifold sees. So unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to use that. Maybe they'll change it for like future iterations of the manifold. Maybe they won't. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that in my case, that is not drilled all the way through. Now, had I known that before I put the intake manifold on, I would have drilled that, you know, not to damage the threads right here, because I would need those, but basically just to drill a hole through the back so that you can actually, you know, the pressure in the intake manifold would come through this hole, and then you could use that as a reference to your blow-off valve. But I'm not gonna be able to get a drill in there now, and I don't feel like taking the intake manifold back off. So what we're gonna do is we're going to run a T off of the brake booster line, and this is pretty common for turbo kits, like aftermarket turbo kits. Like if you had a turbo for your FA20, most likely this is how you got your pressure reference, because the pressure from the intake manifold goes to your brake booster. So this line will see all of the pressure that the intake manifold sees. So basically we can just use this T to tap in somewhere on this line, most likely right here on this little vertical section. We'll cut a snip of that, and I'll have to modify this little T. So let me talk about this really quick. So this guy right here is a multi-size T that I got from like Advanced Auto Parts for, I think this was like $5. It's all plastic. So if you have qualms against having a plastic T versus like a metal T, you know, find whatever you want, but I got this from Advanced. Now, it has a 1/8, a 1/4, and a 3/8, you know, sort of step down here. And so because of the fact that the line for that brake booster is a 3/8 inside diameter, what I'm gonna do on this is I'm going to take a little Dremel, and I'm gonna cut off the top and bottom of this right after the 3/8 section, so that, you know, we don't need to have these two little pieces here. So I'm just gonna take a Dremel, cut right here, retain the 3/8 section, and then we can put a little 3/8 hose clamp on there. And the same for the bottom side, since, you know, the top and the bottom are both going to be inserted into that hose. And then on this, because I'm running a 1/4 inch line to my blow-off valve, I'm just gonna cut this little 1/8 section off, but leave this section, which is the 1/4. So again, cutting this down, retaining the 3/8, cutting this, retaining the 3/8, and then cutting this little tip off and retaining this section, which is 1/4. Now with our little T adapter cut to size and, you know, in the condition that we need it, got to figure out where I'm going to cut this line right here. Now, if you recall, this is the stock brake booster line from the BRZ. This is what K-Power recommended you do in the installation guide. And you very well, I don't know. You might be able to use a different hose for this section, you know, on your swap, but you know, it'd be kind of might be a little bit difficult to find exactly a hose that would work for this. I honestly haven't done the research. I just said we're gonna send it just like this, but I'm thinking it's gonna go something like this. I don't know how well you guys are gonna be able to see that with the lens that I have on there right now, but I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna cut this somewhere in the middle here, and then, you know, obviously the two pieces will be apart, and then I'll jam this in one side and then this in the other side, and then I'll take my, I'll have to cut a new section of vacuum hose to get to the 1/4 inch inlet right here. Let's just send it. Cut made. So this is where I made the cut. I wanted to make sure that where the T is going in is going to be a straight section. I didn't want to cut it where it was already sort of curving. And I didn't want to cut it too low down on this side, right here, because this is already having to make a really tight turn. And I just didn't want to have to put any more stress on that. So let's see if we can't get this T jammed up in there and see how that will eventually look. I did not. Well, I take it back. Maybe that was not the best spot to cut, because I think there's like a filter of some variety in this thing, because right where I cut is this could not have gone any worse. I could not have chosen, I mean, I guess I could have tried to cut it right where that is, but if you feel this hose, you can actually, you might even really be able to see it, that this section of hose is just a little bit wider than up here or down below it. So I can't believe I just barely dodged that thing, but at the same time, I can't believe that I cut so close to that. That sucks. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to keep that piece or just, I mean, I can't, at this point, because I've already cut the line, I can't retain that. Either I pull that out, or I just cut above it and just take this whole section of the hose out, which, thinking, I mean, that's about an inch long. I just happened to miss cutting that piece. I can't believe I didn't know there was a little, I don't know what that is, a little restrictor of some kind. I can't believe I didn't know that was in there. Well, make sure you learn from my mistakes, guys. Oh, jeez. So, to make up for the fact that I just cut the check valve out of my brake booster line, I went ahead and ordered a new replacement one of these from a dealership, but that won't get here until like Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. So in the meantime, I just went to AutoZone and grabbed one of these. This is a check valve from Dorman. Hopefully you learn from my mistakes and you actually don't need to purchase one of these, but this is more or less just a replacement check valve, and the inlet and outlet diameters on this piece are the same as the inside diameter on that brake line. So for now, as a temporary fix until I get the replacement line and I can just do this over again, I'm going to throw this in there, clamp it down, and then I'm going to take the T and also clamp that in there as well. Alright, well, we've got our somewhat temporary solution in place. You can tell I've got the check valve put in right there, and I actually added a small amount of 3/4 line just to kind of take some of the pressure off of this section because of kind of how tight that angle is. And then I have my T right here in between these two clamps. You can kind of just see the outlet right there. So that's the 1/4 inch. So I have, I guess I took off the 1/4 inch line going to the wastegate. So I have a big roll of that, so I just need to cut a little section of that to go from here to the outlet of this T right here. And then that will be blow off valve temporarily done. Again, once I get that new brake booster hose in, I'll take out this little sort of temporary solution, because that check valve should work, but it's just one of those things of like, I'd rather have the part that I know is supposed to be in there as opposed to one that I kind of jerry-rigged together. Vacuum line coming off of here is clamped, and then we see it runs down this way and is clamped onto the T there. Again, this whole setup right here is pretty ugly at the moment, but I mean, looking at the overall thing, it's not too bad, but yeah, that looks kind of crap. So we'll figure that out later once we get the new hose, but for now, blow-off valve side is done. So let's do the line to the wastegate, and I might as well put that wastegate dump pipe on there as well. So I went over to Heat Lightning, and I was pretty much just planning to drop this off and come back over the weekend and pick it up, you know, Monday, Tuesday of next week or something like that. But pretty much they said, if all you're trying to do is weld this flange onto this, you know, pipe, like we could probably just go ahead and get that knocked out for you. So I ran down to the gas station, grabbed a drink, filled the truck up with gas, and pretty much by the time I got back, this was done. So you can see the welds on there, nice and shiny. These guys always do awesome work. So before I can throw this on, I do need to heat wrap this just like how I've heat wrapped all the rest of my exhaust. So let's go ahead and jump into that, and then we'll get this thing reinstalled on the wastegate, and then we'll cut the hose for the wastegate pressure reference. And then after that, all we gotta do is bleed coolant. So let's go ahead and get this thing wrapped. All right, well, I think that just about does it. We got our fitting down here underneath that you can see right here on the bottom of our intercooler pipe. So this is going to see the pressure that's coming out of the turbo and obviously going all the way around. And then right down through this gap is the line where that guy ends. And so that is gonna go to the bottom side of the wastegate, and when the pressure exceeds the wastegate spring, it will actually push that spring open, allowing the exhaust gas to dump out through our dump pipes. So at this point, the entire build, I think, is more or less complete. The only thing we have left before this thing should more or less be ready to go to the dyno is bleeding the coolant. So building this at this point is more or less done. So we're gonna consider that a win for the day. So let's go ahead and drop the back end down. We might even end up having to lift the front end up a little bit. I gotta get my funnel back onto the radiator cap fill point, and then we'll crank it up and try and get coolant flowing through the system. So I'll go ahead and apologize for the fan noise, but I've already done one startup. I had to obviously add a lot more coolant to fill that whole upper coolant reservoir. I started it up once and saw a bunch of bubbles coming out of this, so that was a good sign. What I'm doing is the lower radiator hose that's all the way down here that feeds to the thermostat, I'm just squeezing that and trying to basically force some of the water through the little orifice that I drilled, the little hole that I drilled. And so I'm just going in here and squeezing and trying to force the coolant past the thermostat with that one little hole that's in there. And I've seen a few little bubbles come out, but nothing serious. I might really just need to do it when the engine's running. But this upper hose got a little warm, so I went ahead and shut it down. And I'm running my heat. So I have my fans on full blast, and I have the heat cranked up to max, just to try and promote, you know, heat transfer through the system. All right, so everything's looking okay for now. So let's see if we can't start it back up and see how we do. Get down here, and I know it's probably noisy right now. Squeeze on this lower radiator hose. Okay, no leaks on the timing cover, so that's good. Yep, we're seeing, yep, getting some bubbles. That's good, because after the first time I had started it up, it had kind of come to a standstill. It wasn't getting anything more out. So I'm just reaching my hand down in here, trying to grab onto the top of the lower hose here and just squeeze. Yeah, so you can see we're getting some bubbles out. That's a good sign. Good sign. Just squeezing away. And now what I'm looking for is for this lower radiator hose to start heating up. Yeah, I can tell the top hose is pretty hot. Oh, look, a lot of bubbles. That's good. That's what we want to see. We want to see a lot of bubbles coming out of that. Woo! That lower hose is awfully hot. Oh, there we go. Fan 1 just kicked on. Biscuit!
It's running.
It's looking not too bad. Oh, sorry. Fan 2 just cut on. That's good, so we got both fans running. That's a good sign. That's a very good sign. She runs!
Hell yeah, brother.
The coolant is finally bleeding too. The air is all coming out. You're seeing the bubbles come through this funnel.
Yes, sir.
That's really good. Okay, all right, it's hot, it's hot.
Hell yeah.
But we're gonna call that.
We're gonna call that a win. Boy, I am getting high just standing here from the exhaust.
Yeah, it's something. Whew. Okay, so the temps got up to the point where both fans kicked on, so it's good to see that both fans run. The temps got up to about 210 and then started dropping again, so I think that, you know, is putting me in a pretty comfortable place. Yeah, I can't believe that this thing is going to the dyno tomorrow morning. It's been a long day for me personally. May not seem like I've got a lot done, but I am overly meticulous about a lot of these things. So, you know, I tend to take way too long to do a lot of things. Anyway, I'm rambling. This thing's going to the dyno tomorrow, and we're gonna see if we can't make some power. Oh, I am so stoked. It's gonna get picked up at 9:30. It's gonna go over to ARD Motorsports to get tuned on their dyno, run all diagnostics. Hopefully we can hit 400. Between 12 PSI, VTEC, 1000cc injectors, and a big fuel pump, like that should be doable. The engine can handle it. Everything should go just fine. Hopefully, knock on wood. Where's some wood that I need to knock on? Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. So anyway, if you guys can't tell that I'm excited, I am freaking stoked to have this thing, you know, so close, like literally 1 foot off the finish line. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, because the next video after this one is going to be the dyno results and seeing how much power we can make. So make sure you stick around for that one. And until next time, build your dreams.